Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
The ARL GT3 trophy here on Apex Racing TV heads to Phillip Island for the next round of the ARL GT3 trophy Season 6 here on Apex. Hello everyone, I am Ron Mons in the commentary booth. Joining me alongside is Aaron Smith for the first time this season. He will be joining us along with our resident production assistant. Well, I call him an assistant, he's really the boss, calls all the shots around here. It's Amuli Kumo doing a fantastic job in the production booth. Now Aaron, you're a little bit new to the series. You haven't called a race with this series so far this season, but it's been action-packed from start to finish. But this is a very unique track for this series, so I think we'll also see some very unique racing tonight.
I think you've hit the nail on the head with that one, Ron. I've not really seen Phillip Island and GT cars really all that much in iRacing. It's, as you say, quite a unique track and car combination, and one that I'm sure these drivers and us are very, very excited for. And honestly, the most experience I have with this series is driving in it. I was in the first and second season, I believe, all those years ago. God, it makes me feel old. But yeah, I do love a bit of GT racing every now and then. And Phillip Island is usually quite chaotic, no matter what series you do. And well, I don't think today is going to be any different. But let's find out as we head into qualifying.
We have seen a bit of chaos pop up in the last few races of this season. Certainly Jerez a few weeks ago kind of kicked off the chaos with this season, and as of late it's been pretty dramatic throughout these races. We've seen some incidents here and there. We've seen a lot of drivers bringing out the chrome horn and giving each other a bit of a beating, going side by side, banging doors coming through the corners. But I think hopefully tonight's racing action will be clean and we'll be able to put on a good show for you. So we're currently going through qualifying, but before we get to qualifying, we'll take a look at the championship results. And it's Antonio Sammarco, who's been pretty dominant all throughout this season in that McLaren. He is currently at the top of your pro standing, 638 points, nearly 100 ahead of Carl Winkler, who's had a fairly quiet year. He's been pretty consistent, and that's really the thing that's helped him the most this year. He's in second, and following him is Thomas Wangen in third, Anders Meyer in fourth. Kazuki Fujita, who's had up and down year, he is in fifth in the standings. And we have Marcus Gunzelman. Marcus Beifeld, who's been one of the standout stars this season, missed out in the first few races but is currently 7th in the pro standings. Then we have Kieran Smart in P8, then we have Oliveri in P9, and then Ethan Bass rounding out the top 10 in the pro standings. Now looking through the Pro-Am class, who has been the closest. It's just been a dogfight in the Pro-Am category. We have Christopher Otterholt at the top of the standings, only 8 points ahead of Alexander Scarrett in P2, and then we have Eric Rosseth, Thomas Worm, Thomas Pugh, and we have a triplet of Thomases there. We have Thomas Worm, Thomas Pugh, and Thomas Asfelg in 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then we have Kim Andrean Bjorklund in P7, Jack Wells in P8, Stuart Wynes in that Track Scotland car in P9. And then we have Tarotsky rounding out the top 10 in the Pro-Am category. Still very close in that division. Another close division has been the AM category. We have Yannick Willems in the number 1 position right now. Then we have David Vey, who's been a nice friend of ours. He's been very chatty with this with us in the production, and I say the production booth, in the commentary booth. He's been very chatty with us, so hopefully we can get some good insight from him. He's in P2 in the standings right now. Then we have Jeremy de Boiver in P3, Christopher Crook in P4. Then we have Leung Lo in P5, Gordon Haugen P6, and we have Livingston P7, Simon Motorcleve in P8, De Boiver in P9, and then we have Paul Klist running out the top 10 in the AM category. So very close fields. I think that championship battle in the Pro-Am category is going to be the one that we're going to be focusing on in the final few races of the season, where we've got battles all throughout the field, and certainly we'll see a lot of drivers have that on their minds as they approach tonight's race.
Honestly, I did watch a few races from this season, but I just think the most interesting thing, who's going to challenge Sir Marco? We were talking about it before the race, how we don't think that the McLaren would be too good around here, but he's currently sitting in 2nd place, so clearly we know absolutely nothing. And he's just been bogged down to 3rd place as Meyer goes to the top, only 4 hundredths ahead of Rosseth in 2nd. He's done a fairly good job on his qualifying. We've still got about 7-8 minutes left to go in this session, and well, I mean, you know this series better than I do, Ron. You got any predictions for pole?
Well, right now it's looking very good for Anders Meyer. He's really been the only driver to really challenge Marco in terms of the races. And Anders Meyer, he has been a little bit inconsistent throughout the season, had a few crashes towards the earlier part of the year that's really hurt him in the championship standing. So he's not really in the championship fight per se, but he's certainly going to try and beat Marco. And right now it's looking very good. Meyer was very close to beating Antonio Sammarco last time out in Road Atlanta. It looks like right now, being about 3/10 ahead of Anders Meyer, it's looking very promising for him right now. But looking through the qualifying order as it stands right now, we're about 26 minutes into this 32-minute session. You got to give a shout out to David Vey, currently in P9 overall, the top of the AM competitors right now. He's about, I believe that's about 0.3 of a second, over 0.3 of a second between him and the next driver in the AM category. So that was a fantastic lap from Vey, who will start maybe in the top 10. We'll have to see how the other pro drivers, how their laps go in the final few minutes of this qualifying session. But a lot of drivers putting in some very impressive performances at this time.
It's always good to see a couple outliers in each class. We've had it across Apex this season. No matter what series we seem to do, there's always that one guy in each class who's just doing way better than he should. We've had the likes of Josh Sentance in F3, who was an AM and fighting the leaders for podiums, which is just ridiculous. And yeah, you've got the likes of Vey now in the top 10 in GTs, and everyone knows how close these GT cars are together, especially at a track like this. Such high speed, not really many corners to gain time either. It's fairly short, 1 minute 26 seems to be about where we are at the moment. But yeah, that little mistake that you can have around a track like this can cost you maybe position or even more, as you know, the gap from first all the way down to 17th is a second. And that's not the line through turn 1 at all. Ethan Bass there nearly taking it to the grass. But Sammarco right now, I believe he's going to have a few more attempts in this qualifying session, but currently sits in 4th. And as well, Ron, some of our pro drivers do need to step it up a little bit.
Yeah, it's what we have seen a lot of throughout the season. We've seen the mix between the pro drivers, the pro-am drivers, and the AM drivers. We've seen that kind of interclass mingling up towards the front of the field. So right now we're kind of seeing that put on full display, even though we do have, I believe that's, let me do the quick numbers real quick. We have 7 pro drivers in the top 10 right now, but we still have, we've got 1 AM driver all the way up in P9, then we've got 2 Pro-Am drivers. We've got Roseth right now, less than a 10th off of Anders Meyer for pole. So although Roseth, unfortunately, because of the way the qualifying format works in this ARL GT3 trophy, he will not be able to better his time. He will grab the pole for the Pro-Am category, but that's still mightily impressive that even though he isn't getting the pole overall, still starting second as a Pro-Am driver. That's some fantastic stuff from Roseth. We've seen a pretty up and down season from him. We've seen a lot of incidents and a lot of tough breaks. He had a very dramatic round last week at Road Atlanta. He was involved in a very early spin, which wasn't really his fault, then had a few more incidents throughout that field, then clawed his way through the field. He cut through the field like a hot knife through butter throughout the middle section of that race, and towards the end he put himself in a fantastic position to, I believe, finish top 15 overall, but unfortunately for him, he ran out of fuel on the last lap, which at a track like Road Atlanta, with the amount of elevation changes, we see a mistake there from, that's not Stephen David, I believe, that is the number, as Mattia Kolnagi, who's currently 6th in this qualifying session, he makes a mistake coming out of the final corner, coming through the very fast and very long turn 12. He makes a mistake and hits a wall, so tough break for him, as we see Samarco go up to the top of the timing board. Now he puts on a fantastic lap to jump ahead of Anders Meyer. We weren't expecting a lot from Samarco, but he's put in an absolute stormer now.
Yeah, and then decided to do a cheeky little drift through turn 1, and actually managed to save it. That was very surprising. I honestly didn't think he was going to hold that one together, but the first man into the 125s, and I do mean only just 5,000s, and he would have been on the 26. So don't know who's going to be able to match that, going to be completely honest, but of course we've got a little bit of time left in this session. We're probably going to get 1 or 2 more laps out of your pro drivers today. And Meyer is my best bet on the closest person who might be able to challenge him. But I don't know, that is a rather mighty lap there from Samarco. Can't say anyone's really that surprised. I mean, if you look at the points tally in the standings, it kind of tells you all you really need to know about this man. He's done what he needed to do. And just my opinion, it's always the people in the McLaren that just seem to go ridiculously quick. I don't know if it's just me noticing that, but if you see someone in the McLaren, chances are they're going to be at least top 5.
Well, I think one thing that could actually help Antonio Samarco throughout tonight's race is how light that McLaren is, because it's just, I mean, compare that to some of the other drivers, compared to Anders Meyer running the Porsche. I think that lightness might help him a little bit, because at a track like this, which is just can kill tires on these cars, I think that might play a little bit of a hand tonight. I think we might see some drivers that are a bit easier on their tires be able to run a pretty consistent race. Right now, all of my screens are frozen right now, so I will have to get that sorted right now. So right now, I think Anders Meyer is, as you said, I think he's the only person that could challenge Antonio Samarco, who's been the only person that can really put on a good show, but he's definitely going to try and stake his claim on the series tonight.
100%, and we always like to see some new contenders, no matter what series you go to. It's good to have some surprise winners, some people who just decide, I'm going to go quicker now, and I'm going to challenge you for the win. But it looks like many people are just starting to wrap up their qualifying session, as Wagner there improves a place and collides there with Samarco. Don't really know what happened there, but nevertheless, I believe Samarco will be your pole man for today's race, and I can't say anyone is surprised about that.
I think that's how GT4 cars are made. That was a violation of natural law that we just saw on our screens, ladies and gentlemen. So it's a fantastic qualifying session there from Antonio Samarco, who's going to grab the pole position for tonight's race. Joining him on the front row will be Anders Meyer in P2. Then we have Niels-Erik Isaacson, who's had a up and down season. He lines up in 3rd. Fantastic qualifying from him. Then we have Erik Roseth, another fantastic qualifying from the driver from Norway. He lines up P4, the front runner right now of the Pro-Am drivers. And then right behind them is Thomas Wengen and Marcus Byfelt in P5 and P6. And we have Mattia Kolnagi in P7. P7. Alexander Scaret in P8. Then we have Stephen David in the Lamborghini. He lines up in P9. Then we have David Vey putting in a fantastic qualifying performance. He is in P10, the front runner in the AM category at the start. Then we have Carl Winkler, who's second in the championship in the pro category. He'll be lining up outside the top 10. That might be a little bit of a disappointment from qualifying, but he's always kept it clean in the races. So we'll have to see how he is towards the end of this first heat, which is 35 minutes here for Heat 1. And then we'll have a 30-minute heat to follow that. And then we have Kazuki Fujita lining up in 12th, and looking through the rest of the field, we have Kim Andre Björklund in P13, Ethan Bass in P14, then Thomas Worm in 15th, Robert Castellozzi in P16, Christopher Crook in P17, Stuart Wyness in 18th, Christopher Autoholt in 19th, and Gordon Haug running at your top 20.
Yeah, and then we got our final 10 odd drivers. We got Tom Weston 21st, Kieran Smart in 22nd, Gazulman in 23rd, Wilmans in 24th, Livingston 25th, Merle in 26th, Clist in 27th, Clysons in 28th, Leo in 29th, Baistiti in 30th, and Larson in 31st place. And this is another thing about GCs. There's always a bit of a stacked grid in F3s, a bit lonely. You know, we've only got around, I'd say, 20 people in that series usually. So nice to have a nice wide grid for today's race.
I'll tell you, it's definitely a bit of a culture shock to what we were doing last season. Aaron, doing the radicals, which had fairly low participation with the way that car drove. So it's nice to have a very stacked field, certainly a big field, and a lot of storylines that can go through it. So right now we have a full formation lap to have these drivers trundle around this circuit here before they can take the green flag in a few moments' time. This is a very intriguing circuit, bit different than the rest of the tracks that we've run on this year. We've had a lot of tracks that were very fast, a lot of tracks where we had low downforce setups, and we've also had some ones that were tight and twisty all around it. So I think this will definitely fall into the tight and twisty category. It's on the shorter end. I believe it's about 2 miles, if I'm not mistaken, 12 corners, and you don't really have too many areas to rest. Looking at the track map, the only real area for these drivers to rest is going down that start-finish straightaway between the final corner of turn 12, that very long sweeper, and then the first corner where they have to get a little bit on the brakes, maybe drop down a couple gears, and just huck it through there. So right now, you see these drivers going through the very twisty opening section of the circuit, going through the tight turn 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 complex. And I think turn 4, that hairpin there of Miller Corner, I think that might be a little bit of an action spot tonight. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, it's one of 2 big braking zones on this track. And after this big uphill crest left-hander, we've got the second one. And those are kind of the big braking zones that you're going to be watching out for in today's race. This next corner that we're coming up to now is quite challenging. A downhill braking zone is always not ideal. Overtaking is going to be also incredibly sketchy through here. Going to be really hard to follow some other cars through here. But hey, I've seen crazier things in iRacing before, and I believe we're about to get ready to run.
I believe so. You can see the Porsche iRacing virtual safety car pulling in, and Samarco wastes no time at all. He's already gunning the gas as they go through the final corner. So it's Antonio Samarco leading the field to green. It's a very unorganized start there. A lot of drivers going single file. But it's Antonio Samarco getting a fantastic start, very early jump there on Anders Meyer, who's now fallen into the crutches there of Isaacson, who might try and look for a move in the early stages of this race. But now we've got a lot of drivers going side by side all throughout this field. So far, everyone keeps it clean. No lawn mowing incidents all throughout this field, although that's Stephen David going a little bit slowly going through turn 2 there. So might have a little bit of marbles on his tires at this stage of the race, which is certainly unfortunate, because unlike the races we usually see, where you have a lot of time to work with, whether it's a 60-minute race or otherwise, we've only got 25 minutes in this race, so these drivers don't have a whole lot of time, so they're going to try and press the issue, and we see a lot of drivers pressing the issue. There's Kazuki Fujita going for a move there on a few drivers going into turn 4, as we saw in their spinners going on farther in the back. That's chaos there. A lot of drivers stacking up, a lot of drivers spinning on throttle. That's a lot of drivers piling in as well. That is carnage there on turn 4, just as we expected on the formation lap.
Honestly, I'm surprised how well most of them managed to avoid it. I thought that was going to be even bigger than it actually was, but fair play to everyone. They managed to avoid it fairly well. Only 3 cars, really, and that's Samarco off the track. He's gone off the track, and will he rejoin? Oh, he's taken out 2 other cars with him. And that is Antonio
There's
Samarco.
Stephen David spinning. There's Stephen David spinning around as well. Lots of cars collected in that as well. There's Fujita involved. There's Stephen David, as we can see in the Lamborghini. He unfortunately got collected in that. And there's David Vey. Oh, my pick early on. David Vey has an incident as well. He gets caught up in that. There's another car going off farther behind. Utter carnage here at the start. Unfortunately for Antonio Samarco, who grabbed the pole position and was leading in pretty dominant and convincing fashion very early on in this race. He makes a very crucial mistake there. I believe he was going through the long sweeper of turn 9. That's Lukey Heights there. And unfortunately for him, he makes a mistake there. And that's going to cost him dearly.
Yeah, I did say this would be a corner to watch out for. Let's see actually what happens on corner entry. Does he get a little bit of a snap? He does. Just the back of the car was not having it going through that corner. And maybe just going a little bit too quick on lap 1. Who knows? But yeah, clearly here's McLaren not happy. And yeah, I can't really blame him for that rejoin. There was nothing he could do. And just sliding across the grass into a few other people. And yeah, that was about, I'd say, what, on that first lap, there was around 7 or 8 people all involved in separate incidents. And it's completely mixed up the grid. And we've got some new fights going on. Oh, like this one, and that's for second. Yeah. Rosseth has just taken out Isaacson for second place. That's going to be an incident definitely looked at after the race. Isaacson will be wanting to have a word with his fellow countrymen. It would have been a top 4, all Norwegian actually, but unfortunately Rosseth decided to change that fact. And well, that was a bit of a desperate move there from the 242 driver. Of course, running the same number as me. I don't know how to feel about that one, but either way, he's up to second and trying to defend from Wagner behind. But Maya is probably going to use this opportunity to try and run away from the rest of the field. But yeah, in this opening 2 laps, it's not been the cleanest thing we've ever seen, is it, Rob?
It's just been total carnage up and down this field. Just a lot of incidents early on. I believe my replay might be a little bit glitched here. I'm seeing a whole bunch of cars. I believe we're following Kim Andre and Bjorklund. I could be wrong here. Yep, we are following Kim Andre and Bjorklund. Goes off going through turn 2. He goes through the gravel trap, keeps it out of the barrier. But a lot of drivers going off, a lot of drivers making mistakes, and at this very tight and twisty Australian permanent road circuit, you can kind of expect something like that. Don't really have a lot of room to run, don't have any room to hide if you make a small little mistake. So unfortunately for a lot of drivers, that's caught them out dearly. And right now, there's only 2 drivers that are feeling quite happy with how this heat is going so far. And I believe that's Anders Meyer, who's going to have a pretty boring ride, I would say, unless Eric Rosseth has something to say about that. He'll have a pretty dominant race here, right now leading by about a second, a little less than a second, over Eric Rosseth in P2. And another man who's going to be feeling very happy about the misfortune that befell Antonio Samarco is going to be Carl Winkler, who is currently running P7. And with the misfortune that we saw there from Samarco, let me take a quick look to see where he is running. He is running right towards the back of the pack. He is running in the 29th position right now. So he's lost 28 spots in this race, currently running 29th. So right now, Carl Winkler is going to be seeing an opportunity to take a big gulp out of that championship gap. And we're seeing more carnage here. That's Biasati there that went down the inside of Arderholt there coming through turn 2. Unfortunately, that, I don't know if those just from my American screen here and a bit of a connection issue, but that looked like it was a bit of lag there. I think there's no real contact. I think unfortunately netcode bit Castellozzi there. Actually, was that Castellozzi? I believe actually no, it was Biasati who made the contact, so I don't believe that was exactly, actually, that was Biasati and Alderholt. My apologies there. I'm getting all my drivers confused. It's so chaotic at this stage of the race. I don't even know who's crashed at this point. So I think, unfortunately, for those drivers, that might have been a little bit of netcode involved in that. But right now, we're seeing near contact there between Kieran Smart and Bass here.
It's always good to see drivers going side by side through this kind of section of the track, and hopefully they'll keep it clean. It's inches apart between Bass and Smart and Williams, all of them super close together, and it's just about keeping it clean. And that's one of the first times we can say this. It's just been fairly clean this race, but from what you said about that contact with Basati, I think it was netcode, but I think he was going to hit him regardless. So either way, I think it was a bit of a desperate lunge up the inside, like we've seen a few times. And it's not easy to pass around here, but I think people just need to be a little bit more patient in their overtakes, because I know it's a 25-minute race, but you know, just calm it down, guys. You know, you've got some overtaking opportunities on this track. It's difficult, it's very high speed, very risky, but we're getting some good entertainment out of it nonetheless. And like these guys battling for 13th place. Oh, there's a car off in the background. I believe that's Claeson's. The Belgium driver has fallen down the order. He's tumbling. And I think he did it all by himself on corner exit. And he's escaped right back to the pit lane. We've got some battles still going on. This is Bass trying to defend from the drivers behind. Smart trying to make a move. But like I said before, it's super hard to overtake around this track. And he's going to have to be a bit more patient. Another overtaking opportunity after this turn, and that's Samarco being lapped. And I don't know what's happened to Bass. I believe he's having connection problems. And he jumps back onto our screens as if by magic he's just randomly appeared, like in Harry Potter. But Smart has got a good view ahead of him, and we'll see what he can do from here on out.
There's a lot of magic acts happening in this early stage of the race. I don't know what's going on in Australia right now. I don't know if there's something in the air that's making a lot of these drivers see the red mist right now, but a lot of these drivers are just bringing out the chrome horns very early on this race. It's been action-packed so far, and we're only 7.5 minutes into this 25-minute first tee as we're seeing Ethan Bass try and go for the move here on Willems going into turn 1. That's not an area you usually see too many overtakes on. They're being and banging doors coming through turn 1. That's some close stuff. That was definitely contact. Unfortunately for Willems, he's off there. Yeah, he's going for a trip into the gravel trap. I believe he'll be able to keep it out of the tire barrier. Luckily for him, but unfortunately for him, he will be taken out of this fight. But right now the fight is between Bass and Smart now. So right now, Kieran Smart in that track Scotland car, he's been involved in quite a few incidents all throughout this season, and now he's just putting together a clean race and puts on a clean move there, going past Smart, coming through the hairpin of turn 4. That was a brilliant move there, just a clean little nice simple switchback that Smart managed to pull off there on that Mercedes of Bass. So right now we've had a lot of chaos throughout this race. I'm nearly out of breath as we're seeing some more battling behind with Isaacson and David. That's very close there. That might have been contact as well. Both of these drivers were involved in incidents early on, and both of them are probably feeling a little bit frustrated. Certainly Isaacson more than David, but they're just trying to find trying to find any form of redemption they can very early on in this race.
We've had so many incidents in these opening 9 minutes. I don't even know, what's going on anymore. There's so much to keep track of. And of course, we've got that good battle going on for 13th place that I have no doubt will continue. Probably until the end of this race if they can keep it clean. But you know what? Rousseff is putting in some good laps right now. He's actually closed the gap to Meyer, which is actually quite incredible considering he is a Pro-Am driver. And I believe they are part of the same team though. So maybe there's a little bit of team tactics going on there. Maybe Meyer's giving Rousseff a helping hand. And of course, you want to play the team game in this always, don't you? As there's the battle for 3rd place as well, right behind them. And I'm going to guess for 1 and 2, they might just keep it clean and bring it home for the team. But of course, we love to see teammates fighting. But they'd rather not crash into each other. So who knows what we're going to get over these next 15 minutes. But we've got a lot of battles going on. Battle for 3rd, battle for 13th. Isaacson has gotten past both Bass and Smart on this lap. And Blofeld in 4th place. Oh, that's a huge incident. And that's Isaacson coming back onto the track. And his rear end of that Porsche has been absolutely demolished. That was an incredible high-speed impact. I don't think I've seen a car go that high speed into a barrier in a while in iRacing. How on earth is he still going?
Yeah, that car has basically been turned into a VW right now. The crankshaft in that Porsche engine is pretty much right up Isaacson's right now. So that was a massive impact there. As you said, I'm shocked that he is keep on rolling. I believe he completely skipped out on going into the pits as well. So we're going to get a replay to see what happened here. He was battling with Ethan Bass there. He You've got a Mercedes, we got a German manufacturer, Civil War right now, and just simple little contact there. I believe they wasn't even making contact. It was certainly very close, but I believe that might have been a little bit of net code there that resulted in that impact. That was very close there. That probably would have been contact regardless. But unfortunately for Isaacson, he's involved in his second accident of the day. But bless his heart, I don't believe he has actually come into the pits yet. I believe, I think we're going through the final few corners now, or actually we're towards the middle of the lap, so I think he maybe just skipped out on going down pit road. It's a very interesting aerodynamic innovation, you could call it, that Isaacson is trying on that Porsche 911 of his, but I think that won't be the most competitive in the world.
Well, I mean, the Porsche, as some of you may know, doesn't really have much rear-end grip anyway, and now it's probably a bit of a death trap. Nothing keeping that rear end of that Porsche down apart from the engine. So he's going to have to be super cautious on the way back to the pits. I don't know why he didn't come into the pits on that last lap. I don't know if he didn't know the extent of his damage. I'm not quite sure. But he's got some serious damage. No grip, suspension damage as well. And I'd be surprised if he didn't have any engine damage considering where it is in this car. But hopefully he will come into the pits. And yes, he is. He's pulling off into the pits, which I think is the safe and, well, obvious choice he should do. Let's hope he can't speed in the pits. But, yeah, unfortunate for a lot of our pro drivers who've been involved in a few incidents today. Of course, we've had the likes of Samarco and now Isaacson as well. And it makes for an entertaining and interesting race. It's like if both Red Bulls in Formula 1 were out of the race. It spices it up just that little bit and makes it even more interesting than it rather would have been. Yeah, a lot of shake-ups going on. We've got the likes of Crook up in 8th place. He leads the AM series right now. Rousset, of course, up in 2nd place, leads Pro-Am. And Meyer doing a pretty good job up in 1st place right now. He's just keeping his head cool and only got about 12 minutes to go in this race. As I definitely think these guys will just bring it home as a 1-2. I don't think they'll fight it. If they do, then fair game. And Rousset might want to snatch a win away from his teammate. But I doubt we will get a battle between the two teammates anytime soon.
Well, I fear, with you being a Ferrari fan, Aaron, I fear if I make a Felipe is faster than you reference, I might get pilloried by you in the post-race. But I think they might try and use a little bit of team orders just to keep those cars on the road. These two drivers are keeping them on the road nicely, and they're trying to battle right now for the final podium position right now. This is between Thomas Wangen in the IGL Coatings E-Racing Porsche, and then we have Marcus Beifelt in the another Porsche right behind him. Beifelt and his teammate Christopher Crook have put on some pretty good drives right now. They're both sitting in the top 10. It's very impressive. Crook right now is currently leading the AM category, and certainly probably wouldn't have been the case if it wasn't for the mistake that, well, it wasn't really a mistake. It was just an unfortunate incident that Vey was caught up in. So chances are, if it wasn't for that, he probably would be definitely up towards the front, but I think he kind of, I wouldn't say backed into a win, but I think Christopher Crook is still putting on a good drive right now, currently P9 overall, and I believe he might start to battle with BS Sadie in the not-too-distant future, only about a second separating those two drivers, so we might see a close little battle there, but right now, this is a battle we have our eyes on. There's some close stuff here, and I'm sure in the second half of this Heat 1, I'm sure these drivers are going to be battling as hard as they can for that final podium position.
I do believe Baisati is the man who overtook Crook for 8th place, so I think he'll just start to pull away. He will probably be in no man's land. He's pulling away around a second a lap from Crook, but also has a huge gap to Winkler in front. So, yeah, not really surprising, but he's probably just going to settle down for the latter part of this race. We've got now 10 minutes to go there, and, well, what else can happen in these next 10 minutes? It's been rather entertaining so far. I think that's probably the understatement of the season. And, well, it's my first race commentating on this series. And, well, if every race is like this, the next season I might have to sign up myself as quickly as humanly possible, because we've had some great racing, also some controversy in this race. I am not complaining at all. I am loving every bit of this. And hopefully everybody out there watching is as well. And well, we've still got another race after this, so don't go anywhere. It's going to start all over again after this 10 minutes is done.
Yeah, certainly to the viewers watching wherever they are, all over the world. If you're watching this on Apex Racing TV, this isn't the only action we have here. We've got a whole bunch of other forms of racing here on this channel. We've got the ARA Porsche Cup, I believe, running tomorrow. That'll be at, I'm not even sure what track it's running at. You can tell I'm a great expert in that series. That'll be running tomorrow. And then we have the Radical Season Finale coming up on Friday. That'll be a very interesting race at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. It's been a pretty hectic season in that series. A lot of the drivers have been giving it everything it has now that they fixed the car after the troubles it faced last season. So if you'd like to see that or any of the other action here on Apex Racing TV, regardless of what series you want to watch and what kind of cars you want to see driving around a virtual racetrack, Apex Racing TV is the place to go. So if you want to be notified of whenever we post, remember to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Since it's not my own YouTube channel, I'll be a shill here and tell you to hit the subscribe button. Usually on my main channel I have a bit more guts than that. We have Christopher Crook. Oh no, it's the commentator's jinx. I was talking about how great of a drive he was having, and unfortunately for him, he makes a mistake. I believe that's coming through the long sweeper of turn 2. We've seen a lot of drivers go off there. Unfortunately for him, he makes a mistake and drops from P9 overall down to P14 and loses the lead in the AM category to Gordon Haug right now in that Porsche.
Not ideal for Crook at all. He was having a really good race and honestly just kind of needed to bring it home. He didn't need to push at all, but I think GT cars around here is a rather tricky combination as because of the high speed nature. Hello, that's another mistake from Gunzelman. He's dropping and he's just about kept it on. I don't know how on earth he's avoided the barriers there, but he has dropped around 4 or 5 places now as he goes side by side with Crook, the man who also made a mistake on this lap, as Crook sneaks up the inside round the penultimate corner as we head onto the last corner. And Kieran Smart is also going to try and be an opportunistic boy and overtake him for 14th place. And Slipstream fairly effective around here. We're coming up to the start-finish line now, and into turn 1, can't really outbrake your opponent. It's a very risky move, and Smart there, you can hear him just lift off. And I think he just wants to get to this end of the race, and that's Crook off again. He needs to come on back onto the track. Ooh, and that was very smart by Gunzelman and Smart. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, they both just backed out of it, and they kind of knew that this track for rejoins is absolutely horrible. It can be the, it can leave your underpants needing a wash. Let's just say that. But yeah, they both did really good driving there. I think we've seen some questionable driving in this race so far, but gotta hand it to Gunzelman and Smart for doing that, and they managed to avoid a crash and continue on in this race.
Seeing the nature of the off that Christopher Crook just had exiting turn 1 and going into turn 2, I was fully expecting that to be a 3-car jam up going into turn 2, but Gunzelman and Smart pull off the matrix moves there to get around them without incident. And if Christopher Crook even, he managed to keep it going for the most part, and right now he is just barely, I mean, he's definitely away from this pack per se, but it's definitely not like he's 5,000 miles away either. He is still definitely within a shot, but I think after 2 mistakes and pretty much 2 laps in a row, I think Christopher Crook is going to try and take it easy in the late stages of this race, even though he did lose the lead in the AM category. He might lose a little bit more if he makes a mistake. I think Christopher Crook is just going to try and keep it on the road, because if he makes, I mean, you could just see from the live timing screen on the left-hand side of your screen, if Crook makes another mistake right now, he's running 2nd in the AM category. If he makes some low mistake and loses about 5 seconds, he can just drop back like a rock through the AM category. So unfortunately for him, he'll be just definitely a bit upset about the mistakes that he made, throwing away really a surefire win in the AM category. But I'm sure he'll try and keep it on the road and try and hold on to that position for dear life. Thankfully, he does have Antonio Samarco between him and Livingston right now in P16, so I don't think we'll see some battling from them. But right now we're seeing some battling right ahead of him between Smart and Gunzelman. Gunzelman has a bit of a slide there coming through. I believe that's turn 5 or turn 6. I believe that is turn 6 there. That Gunzelman had a little bit of a slide through, and now he's going to lose P14 overall to Christopher Crook, who goes for the move after Gunzelman's mistake.
Seeing a lot of mistakes coming out in the latter stages of this race. We've got around 4.5 minutes to go at Phillip Island today, and you can see your top 5, top 6 hasn't really changed too much over the last, let's say, 10-15 minutes. It kind of all kicked off in those opening few laps and has settled down. Everywhere else, though, it's been up and down all over the place with plenty of mistakes, plenty of side-by-side action, overtakes. Gunzelman being one of those drivers. Here is Bass trying to defend from David behind into turn 1. Fairly simple defense. Just keep on the racing line, carry a lot of speed, leave a little bit of room for your driver, and you can both get through safe and sound. As it is fairly difficult with these high-speed corners to make sure your fellow competitor doesn't get swiped off into the abyss as you come onto the racing line, as there's kind of only one real line through most of these corners because of the high-speed nature of it. If you try and go around the outside, you'll just lose a bunch of speed or you'll go off the track. It's very, very difficult, but you know, we've seen some people prove my point in today's race where they've just gone onto the grass, and it seems like a lot of people seem to be running very loose setups, as the rear end of these GT cars is not having it at all in these corners. But I imagine it's still quite fun to throw the car around this track, and I do envy them sometimes. It does look like fun, but at the same time, it also looks quite terrifying. I wouldn't want to be side by side through any of these corners, Ron.
Oh yeah, it's definitely challenging. Speaking of challenging, we just saw a mistake there from Kim Andre Björklund, who dropped a wheel off in the dirt coming out of turn 6. So yet another mistake there from another driver, and we're seeing another battle here. This is a battle that we've been following all throughout this race. It's up towards the front of the field between Thomas Wangen and Marcus Byfeld. And Byfeld has always been, he's been a cool customer. He's been calm as a cucumber all throughout this season. He's just been bringing it home whenever he needs to bring it home, but he definitely will not resist a move there on Wangen there after the small little snap there that Wangen had coming through that corner, and Byfeld is going to take advantage of that. I was just going to say that Marcus Byfeld usually doesn't force the issue too much in these races, but Byfeld will pick up the pieces if a driver ahead of you makes a mistake, which if you see that multicolored Porsche in your mirror, you know that Marcus Byfeld is a very strong competitor, and it applies a little bit of pressure to you mentally. We've seen mind games play a little bit of an effect in these races. I believe that might have been a little bit of mind games there between the two Scandinavian drivers of Byfeld from Sweden and Wangen from Norway, and we're seeing those two drivers in the two Porsches battling still. This time Byfeld is going to get the upper hand on Wangen, but right now we have a little bit left in this race. I believe we're approaching 2 laps to go. If not, we're on the final lap this time by. I believe we actually do have 2 laps to go in this race. So Byfeld is definitely not out of clear yet. Wangen is still going to be applying the pressure. Speaking of applying the pressure, Carl Winkler is applying the pressure to Scarrett, who had a big snap there coming through turn 1. That could have been massive there for Scarrett, but thankfully for himself, he keeps it on the road and is still going side by side with Winkler. Winkler, even though Samarco right now is running P26 right now, he has had an awful day in that McLaren. Winkler's sensing an opportunity, and he's saying, like, okay, with my championship rival, my main championship rival, so far back in the field, I think he, even though he realizes that P7 would still be pretty good, he wants to apply that pressure a little bit and try and get a P6 at the end of tonight's race.
Yeah, we are on the penultimate lap here. He's not got long left to try and get past Scarrett. And yeah, like you saw that snap on the exit of turn 1. This is why, in my opinion, the Porsche can be a little bit sketchy sometimes, because when it does snap, you got to be ready for it. You have to be so precise, and I respect all of the drivers that can deal with the Porsche, and that's a mistake for Merle, all the way down in 19th place, and I don't think he's lost too many positions there. I believe he only lost 1 to Wham. We now are on the white flag lap as Meyer starts his final lap. He's been rather comfortable this entire race, not really looked unfazed at all. His teammate behind, Rousseff, has just followed him home, had some good pace as well to match at the start, but has just started to fall away over these last few laps. And also Byfeld in 3rd place is just edging ahead of Wagner by around a second now. So I think that battle for 3rd place is done and dusted. We're going to have an all-Scandinavian podium by the looks of it, but we could have had an all-Norwegian podium, but unfortunately Wagner, that mistake has cost him dearly as Mel heads into the pit lane on the last lap, so he will most likely finish in 24th place, and that's Christopher Cook off the track again, his 3rd mistake of the night. and he's got big damage to that Porsche, and he's going to lose even more places than he already had now. He's gone from 9th all the way down now to 22nd place. He has just escaped out of the race, and a turn 1 again. He's made that mistake, I think, twice in this race, and he has escaped, and he's had absolutely enough. No, he hasn't. I apologise about that. He's still going, still chugging along. But yeah, not an ideal race for him. Down in 18th, he's literally halved his racing position. But one man who's done everything right today, Meyer, takes the win in the first race here at Phillip Island. He's done a superb job. He's super happy with himself. Seth comes home in 2nd place, and Scarrett just about finishes ahead of Winkler for 6th place. And Winkler flashing his lights there. Can't tell if he's annoyed or just saying, thank you, I had a good time racing you, my friend. Gordon Haug is going to win in the AM class in 9th place. Could have been Christopher Cook, but mistake after mistake cost him dearly today. But wow, what an opening 25 minutes we had there, Ron. I don't know if I can take much more of this.
Oh, well, you definitely have to take a little bit more of it, as we still have the 30-minute second heat here tonight, and I think if it's anything like Heat 1, it'll definitely be chaotic from start to finish, and I think the starting grid will definitely be a result of that, thanks to the way it is set up here in the Apex ARL GT3 Trophy Series. We'll have a reverse of, if I can spit out reverse correctly, we'll have a reverse of our top 10 finishers from Heat 1 as our starting grid for Heat 2. So it's going to be Castellozzi who's actually going to be sitting on pole, with Gordon Haug, the AM winner from Heat 1. He's going to be lining up on the 2nd position. He'll be lining up on the front row. So he'll have the clean air there in that Sim Racing Norway Porsche of his. At the start of the race, so that'll be a very interesting. I think we're setting ourselves up for a very intriguing Heat 1. We're gonna get our starting grid here in a little bit, but I think for now I'll give a quick shout out to the sponsors of this series. Of course, we couldn't do these broadcasts if it wasn't for the different parts of Apex, and one of those is Apex Racing Academy. And if you want to be a good sim racer, Apex Racing Academy would definitely be something to add to your VRS subscription. So if you want to check out that and have a one-on-one or group coaching in the sim, you can definitely check that out. All the relevant links are in the description below. But we will get our grid here soon, I believe. Actually, no, we have a quick little warm-up here. A little 3-minute warm-up session here to let these drivers kind of get all the jitters out and have a little bit of a break now. I think both of us have to catch our breath after the absolute fluster you-know-what that Heat 1 was here. So we're going to take a look at our starting grid now. It's Anders Meyer, who, actually, no, that's not the starting grid. This is a Race 1 results. You can tell I'm great with reading. I should probably get my glasses prescription changed in the not-too-distant future. He takes a win over his teammate Eric Rosseth. Those two drivers finished 1-2 for Racing Lab Esports. Great result from them. And then we have Marcus Beifeld in P3. And we have Thomas Wangen in P4. Matteo Carnaghi put together a pretty quiet race in P5. Then we have Alexander Scarrett and Carl Winkler, who were battling. They finish in 6th and 7th. And we have Biasati in 8th. Gordon Haug in 9th, Castellozzi in 10th, Ethan Bass in 11th, Stephen David in 12th with a chaotic race, Kieran Smart in 13th, Marcus Gunzelman in 15th, then we have Simon Andre and Livingston in P15. He finishes 2nd of the AM drivers, and then following him is Yannick Williams in P16 overall. Then we have Thomas Worm in 17th, Christopher Crook, who had 3 mistakes in the first 2 turns. In the second half of this race, he ends up in a disappointing P18. And then we have Niels Erik Isaacson in 19th, and Kim Andre and Bjorklund rounding out your top 20. And looking through the rest of the field, we have a lot of drivers that were involved in unfortunate incidents. Really, basically the entire field was involved in an incident at some point during that race. David Vey was one of them, although it wasn't really in his control. He ends up in P21 in Heat 1. And then we have Thomas Weston in P22, Paul Joseph Kliss in P23. Then we have Hoopka Merle, who had a pretty dramatic debut in the series last week. week in Road Atlanta. He finishes P24 after another dramatic race, and we have Kazuki Fujita, if I can spit my words, that he's in P25, and then we have Antonio Samarco in a very disappointing P26, and Christopher Autohold in 27th, Leon Leo in P28th, and Stuart Wyness, PJ Claysons, and Kettle Larson rounding out your field. PJ Claysons will not be joining us in Heat 2, I believe. I believe he alt F4'd after the mistake that we saw him suffer through in the first heat, and then Kettle Larson, I believe he had some kind of technical issue, and he was unable to join us in the first heat, and will probably skip out on Heat 2 tonight, so tough for those drivers.
I need a breather, but unfortunately the 3 minutes are up, and I'm not going to get a breather, unfortunately. We're going to do it all again over these next 30 minutes, and, well, let's see if Race 2 can match the utter chaoticness of Race 1. I kind of hope it does, but for the sake of my sanity and my voice, I hope it doesn't. But I don't know. I'm kind of mixed right now. I'm just excited, Ron. I don't know. I'm just excited.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely excited. We'll have to see what this second heat tonight has in store. We'll take a look at our starting grid. It's Robert Castellozzi, as I said, on pole position in the Pro-Am category and overall. So he winds up in P1 after finishing P10 in Heat 1, and then Gordon Haug alongside in P2, Biasetti in P3, Carl Winkler in P4. He'll definitely try and look to impress and improve that gap between him and Samarco. He winds up in, he'll start P4 for Heat 2. Then we have Alexander Skora in P5, Mattia Konagi in P6, Thomas Wangen in P7, Marcus Beifelt in P8. Then we have Eric Roseth and Anders Meyer, your 1-2 finishers from Heat 1, rounding out your top 10 here for the starting grid of Heat 2. Then we have Ethan Bass, Stephen David rounding out your top 12. Then we have Kieran Smart in P13. Had to take a quick little sip of water there. Kieran Smart's in P13. Then Marcus Gunzelman in 14th. Then we have Simon Andre Livingston in P15. Yannick Willems in P16. Thomas Worm in 17th. Christopher Crook in 18th. Certainly looking for redemption after the dramatic Heat 1 he had. And that's Niels Eric Isaacson in P19. Kim Andre Bjorklund in 20th. David Vey in 21st. Thomas Weston in P22. That's Paul Joseph Klist and Arthur Hoopla Merle. I really feel bad. I feel like I'm butchering his pronunciation every time I look at his name. He'll wind up, well, he'll start tonight's race in P24. Then we have Kazuki Fujita in P25, Antonio Samarco in P26. Certainly those two drivers are going to look for a much better, much cleaner Heat 1. Then we have Christopher Autohold in 27th, Leon Lung in the 28th position, and then we have Stuart Wyness rounding out your field, as I believe PJ Claysons and Kettle Larson will not make the start.
I feel bad for you having to read 2 grids in the last 5 minutes. I don't know how your voice did that, to be honest, but round of applause, Ron, you did it. But 30 minutes of utter chaos, I can assure you. Who's going to win this one? We don't know. Will Meyer and Roseth and maybe other drivers be able to claw their way back up into first place? Or are we going to see a new winner in tonight's race? Well, stay tuned and you'll find out along with us. And will Samarco and other drivers like Isaacson also be able to claw their way into a decent result today? I think they have a good chance maybe to get top 15, top 10 if they're lucky with a few incidents. But of course, starting near the back can be very, very risky. You can get caught up in incidents if you're not careful. But they're experienced enough, I believe, to be smart enough to avoid all of those incidents. But we're about to find out, aren't we, Ron? And, well, I'm nervous, excited. Every emotion that I can feel right now is what I feel. Let's get ready to go racing one more time here at Phillip Island.
I think Heat 1 was definitely sensory overload for the both of us, and I'm sure it was for a lot of drivers. I think Heat 2 will be no exception. I believe the drivers have gone off to, look like they're getting off to a very early start. Looked like Castellozzi jumped pretty early. It's not the unorganized nature that the start in Heat 1 had. Those drivers are lining up quite nicely, going very slow. Actually, Robert Castellozzi is your pole man. He will control this initial start of the race. You can see that driver's packed up, and then they go. There's Castellazzi going on the gas. He is going to jump ahead of Haug. Has a pretty bad start. He isn't actually going to get overtaken and drop back to P3. Biastati followed Castellazzi on that start. He started in P3. He will move up to P2. So those two Porsches, both teammates there, the GE Sports racing team drivers, have a very good start there. They start the race and go into P1 and P2 in order. Quite nice formation if you're the runners of those teams. So for the second race in a row, we have teammates 1-2.
Not really surprising there. I think doing that slow start is honestly better for a track like this. And there goes Biastati into first place, unsurprisingly. Maybe a bit of team cooperation there, as they obviously want to avoid each other. Can we make it through turn 4 this time without a huge pile-up? And I believe we can. Good on all the drivers this time. And hopefully everyone's just going to be a little bit cleaner this race. Samarco already making some decent progress. He's up 3 places from where he started. And trying to go for one more. Going for a very ballsy move up the inside there of Western up into 22nd place. And like I said before, oh, there's an incident there for Fujita. And I didn't even notice he went off the track. He's really had a big incident somewhere all by himself, as he's fallen right to the back of the grid.
Samarco off.
Oh,
Is Samarco doing a little bit of lawn mowing there. I don't think it was too bad. He just did a little bit of lawn mowing coming off of turn 10, I believe that was. But Samarco having yet another bad start. Right now he has P23 in this race. But Antonio Samarco, if you're looking at the championship fight and seeing Carl Winkler in P3 right now, he's going to have Kolnagi as Haug has dropped back. If you're Antonio Samarco, you're seeing your main championship rival running in the final podium position right now. I think if you're Antonio Samarco, you might want to start pressing the issue. But at a race like this, I think it might be best just to kind of play it cool, play it calm, because we saw so many mistakes in Heat 1 that I think if he just keeps it clean and keeps it on the road, I think he might be able to wind up in the top 15 by the end of this race.
Got a lot of laps left to find out. There's Thomas Wagner making himself useful up into 5th place. As Haug is slipping further and further down. He's just been overtaken by Scaret as well. But Haug is going to try and fight this one, though. He's got the inside line for turn 6, as Scaret now has the inside line for this next corner. But side by side through here, as we established last race, it is very, very risky. They are inches apart. Scaret is desperate to get past. But Haug, I don't really think there's anything he can do, and he just stays in 7th place. And yeah, this downhill braking is super, super challenging. And we've seen a few moves there. Up into 13th place goes Stephen David as well. He is 1 place down from where he started. And seeing the same kind of battle that we saw between Gunzelman, Bass, David and Smart, and Willems and Crook as well. All of them still separated by around a second. As a Castellazzi there, trying to defend from Winkler as he tries to make himself useful. Up into 2nd place, he's trying, but around the outside of turn 1 isn't going to work for him this time round. But at the moment, it's an Italian 1-2, both in the same team. And well, Castellazzi is under a lot of pressure, but it's a difficult track to overtake at. But we'll see over the next about 25 minutes we've got left in this race.
Winkler's kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. If you look on the graphics right now, you can see Winkler's the only German in the top 9. The rest of the drivers in the top 9 are all either from Norway or Italy. So right now he's kind of sticking out a little bit of a thumb there, as you can sticking out like a sore thumb there a little bit on the on-screen graphics. And if you want to know who's the supplier of these on-screen graphics, it's SDK Gaming. And if you'd like to check out SDK Gaming to get your own sort of graphics, if you want to use iRacing all on your own, they have advanced versions of the Relative and all of this stuff you see on screen right now, all the logos and all the graphics and everything. If you'd like to check out SDK Gaming, the relevant links are in the description. We thank them for their support, and we couldn't put on these broadcasts without them, so we always appreciate them. And right now we're appreciating the fantastic racing we've seen all throughout tonight's race. It's been hectic. It's been definitely not clean. It's been chaotic. It's been incident-packed. But it's definitely, you can't call it boring by any stretch of the imagination. We're seeing battling all throughout the field. We're seeing some battling here between Livingston, Vey, and Bjorklund there. We're seeing some battling right outside the top 15, right outside the top 16 to be more precise. So these drivers are going very close. That's Vey and Bjorklund going side by side, coming through the first corner. Vey has to back out of that in the BMW, but it looks like he's going to try and go for the move around the outside. Yeah, that's not going to stick too well there. And now he's going to be at a threat of losing a position there to Isaacson in P20. Isaacson was showing a lot of pace in Heat 1, but unfortunately for him, he got caught up in an accident, so it relegated him down the order in Heat 1, and because of that, he had to start farther down the field in Heat 2. So right now, Isaacson is trying to prove something, and he's trying to find any way to get around David Vey. The Hungarian has always been very impressive, certainly one of the standout stars as far as I'm concerned in the AM category. He's driven that BMW to some fantastic results, but he's also had some pretty bad luck throughout the season as well, and unfortunately for him, Heat 1 was no exception to that, but right now he is running in P19 and looks to probably capitalize if these two drivers crash ahead of him. These two drivers of Livingston and Bjorklund are battling very hard. The two drivers from Norway are battling very tightly as they go into turn 10.
Honestly, one thing I always hated about following a BMW. Hello, and that's contact. Well, you predicted it, Ron. They've made contact on the exit there. And very awkward there. It seemed like Livingston kind of messed up his exit and tried to cut back, but Bjorklund just wasn't having any of it. And a bit of an awkward incident there as, well, Livingston doesn't have any rear end left on that Ferrari. But Bjorklund now has all the cars behind him in his rearview mirror, and that's an absolutely terrifying sight. Vey trying to move up the inside, but not an easy overtaking opportunity there. But like I was going to say, I always hated following the BMW in GT cars because it's so big. I'm pretty sure everybody knows this. It's such a wide and massive car that following it can be quite intimidating, to be honest. But here's Marcus Biefeld in 9th place. Doing fairly well right now, but down one place from where he started. But he's still alive, still in this race. Got 20 odd minutes left in this race. Still a lot of time for other drivers ahead to make mistakes. And Samarco and Osselin going into battle, as well as Isaacson. Oh, I believe Vey's had a mistake somewhere. He's off the track. He's tumbling down the order. It doesn't seem to be too bad. He's lost around 5 places, but has come back onto the track really cleanly. There's Ethan Bass trying to make a move on Haug. This is the thing, we've got battles going on everywhere. Here's David Vey as well trying to defend from Mel behind. Honestly, anywhere you look, there's something going on. Someone going side by side, someone eyeing up a move. Oh, it's absolutely exhausting, this run.
Yeah, this is action-packed. You join this series, you decide you pick the best race to commentate because this has been action-packed from start to finish. I'm sure Sam, who usually is joining me in the commentary booth, is probably kicking himself that he's not able to do tonight's broadcast, but I'm sure he'll probably be watching from home. So Sam, if you're watching, maybe give us a pay raise or something like that. But tell Lee to give us a pay raise. So anyways, before I get into any hot water for saying stuff like that, we've got some more battling here. This is between Bass and Gunzelman and Haug right now. Bass is trying to look for the move there on Haug. That's some clean stuff there as they went into the turn 4 hairpin. We've just seen so much carnage throughout this race. I'm shocked my voice hasn't blown out because it's been absurd. It's been totally ridiculous. The action that we've seen tonight's been constant battling all throughout the field, regardless of whether these drivers are battling for P20 or whether they're battling for the first place position. These drivers are giving it everything they have, and it's just putting on some truly glorious racing. I'm sure some of these drivers might be a little bit frustrated with the difficulty to pass, but it's brought out it's brought out the dog in a lot of these competitors. I'm sure as commentators, both of us are very happy about that fact. So let me just give the viewers, as we see some pedaling here between Rosseth trying to get past Wangan there. Actually, that's Rosseth, trying to get past Wangan. And right now we've at Scaret to that battle as well. There's some very close stuff here. Those drivers are going very tight there, and it's just very close separating this field. And sorry about that. This doesn't involve Wangan. It involves his teammate there of Scaret, Rosseth, and Meyer. So Meyer right now started down in P10, has only moved up 2 spots right now, so Meyer is kind of stuck in this pack right now, and he has Marcus Biefeld trying to get past him while he's trying to get past the 2 cars ahead of him with Scaret and Rosseth right now. And there's Meyer going for the move there on Rosseth, his teammate going into turn 4. He gets that move done in fairly clean manner, so right now Meyer moves up to P7.
And Maya, your race winner of race 1, of course, making some decent progress around here, but like I said before, not an easy track to overtake at all. Pardon me, don't know what happened there, but and also such a competitive field. It's honestly such a challenge to get overtakes done. And honestly, I do not envy these drivers at all, but they are doing a fantastic job, most of them right now, to get some clean overtakes done and keep it clean as well. Going side by side at a track like this, in cars like this as well, is incredibly challenging. The slightest bit of contact will either send you, tumbling over the grass and lawn mowing, or it will just send you into a wall. There's not really an in-between on that. There's a lot of grass, a lot of runoff on this track, but because it's so high speed, it ought to be that way. It needs a lot of runoff, otherwise you will just slam headfirst into a wall. But yeah, we've got battles going on quite literally from first all the way down to about 25th place right now. So yeah, we ought to have multiple screens, and this is the battle going on for 4th place, I believe. Actually, it's for 5th place, my apologies. And wow, actually, it's just between 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So yeah, it's so close between these guys, and let's hope they can keep it clean. And like you were saying, Ron, Winkler has to make a good opportunity of this race, and he ought to get past Castellozzi in 2nd place and secure as many points as he can, as Samarco just starts to up the ante at the moment. He's gained a few places on that last lap. He's up to 19th place. Still got a long way to go in this race, around 19 minutes. And that downhill braking looks like such a challenge, honestly. Wagner got so close to Winkler there. And hello, this is Alexander Skret under pressure from Meyer as he tries to go around the outside. And he spun round. I don't know if there was contact there or if he just lit up the rear tyres all by himself. But he somehow managed to avoid a barrier and avoid everyone else as well. So fair play to the Norwegian. He's kept it relatively clean. Everyone else needs to be careful. There's Samarco following round and up to 18th place. But that's Skret going from 7th all the way down to 20th place. And it could get worse for him.
Yeah, it looks like it is getting worse now, as I believe Livingston, yes, he has gone past, and now David Vey is going to look to get past. No, Livingston, and Livingston gets spun around. He keeps it in a straight line, and that big slide there, a Tokyo drift, if you would, going through turn 1, thanks to help from Vey. But that was very close there. That wasn't really a smart move there from Vey, if I'm being brutally honest. That was just a bit overly opportunistic going into turn 1, but these drivers are getting a little bit impatient, I feel, with the nature of this circuit. There's not a whole lot of overtaking opportunities at a track like this, so I'm sure that's probably the reason why we've seen a lot of action throughout tonight's race, a lot of chaos, a lot of incidents just in general. Utter carnage. I'll give the viewers a bit of a perspective into how chaotic it's been. I usually have a full 32-ounce bottle of water to start off these broadcasts to keep my mouth moistened, as we're seeing some nice battling here between Kolnagi and Winkler. Now Winkler is holding on for dear life to try and hold on to that P4. He lost a position there to Wangan, and he's now trying to hold on desperately to that P4. Kolnagi had a quiet Heat 1 where he finished 5th, and I think he's now going to try and finish P4 tonight. And maybe it looks like he has some very good pace, so maybe he can challenge Wangan for P3. We'll just have to wait and see. But getting back to the point I was going to mention, I start off these broadcasts with a 32-ounce bottle of water. Right now, the bottle of water I have right next to me is down to below the 8-ounce mark, so this race has been utterly chaotic. It's blown my voice out for the most part. I wish we did have a water sponsor on these broadcasts, but we don't. But we do have some very good sponsors. I've mentioned 2 of them already, and I'll mention the last. It's a virtual racing school that a lot of sim drivers on the iRacing platform know of and are very familiar with. And if you want to be a better sim driver, you could go on to VRS. You can check them out with the relevant links in the description. If you go onto VRS, check out Apex Racing Academy as well. I mentioned them earlier, but if I had Apex Racing Academy a lot earlier, I'd probably be joining these drivers instead of talking about them in the booth.
I just had to do some calculations because I don't know the ounce to milliliter conversions, and I just realized you have a liter of water beside you every race. Jesus. I don't even know what to say to that. And there's Cole Winkler. Hello, I think he's made a mistake or made contact with Kolnagi, and they've both had a very awkward incident. They both were incredibly slow into turn 10, and Winkler managed to get back past Kolnagi up into 4th place. as he starts to tumble a little bit down the order from, I think at his highest he was in second place momentarily, but has just started to drop off the pace a little bit, and mistakes have started to creep in. And yeah, he was under pressure from Kolnagi, but not quite sure what happened between those two into turn 10. We might be able to find out at some point, but they've both kept it going and are still in this race so far. But so Marco, if I'm being honest, was pardon me, I was honestly thinking he was going to make a bit more progress at this stage in the race. We're about halfway through now. He's up 8 places, but I thought he'd be more or less in the top 15 at least by now. But like I said, I guess it is quite difficult to overtake around here. He was going to try into turn 4 and overtake Bjorklund, but just didn't have the braking that he wanted there, and has to sit behind in 18th still, and is got a bunch of cars behind him in his rearview mirror.
One thing I will say about Sammarco not making a whole lot of progress throughout this race right now is I think it could be just the way the McLaren is. I think Sammarco really struggles in the dirty air because that McLaren is usually pretty low on downforce as is, but being stuck in the dirty air, I mean, you can see just the size difference between him and the Porsche there. Porsche up ahead of him of Kim Andre and Bjorklund. You can see that rear wing of the McLaren is just so far low compared to the Porsche up ahead of him. He's actually pulling out of line to try and get any sort of air on either the front splitter or the rear wing of that McLaren just to kind of hole it through the corners and not lose a whole lot of time. So I think that could be the reason why he's losing a lot of time right now. He lost a lot of time coming through the final corner, and he's now going to be at risk of losing a position here to Arderholt behind. Christopher Arderholt has had a very dramatic night. He's been involved in a few incidents, some that weren't his fault, some that just, well, a lot of drivers just got involved in some very unfortunate incidents, but he's trying to look for any way to get past Antonio Sammarco, and now Sammarco is trying to find any way to get past Kim Andre and Bjorklund. They come out of turn 3, they're going to go through the inside of turn 4. Sammarco is going to have the inside line, and he's going to switch to a very interesting defense there to try and hold off that position, hold off Kim Andre and Bjorklund. But Bjorklund looked like he was going to try and stick it, going around the outside of turn 4, but unfortunately for Bjorklund, he's going to lose that position. So Sammarco makes it up to P17, which is still, I mean, he's made up a lot of spots right now, but as you said, it's a little bit disappointing as how much we'd expect. But right now we're seeing some very nice tussling up towards the front.
Yeah, all the way from 2nd down to about 8th place, these guys are tussling. And well, yeah, like I just said, anyone from 2nd to 7th, even 8th right now, and debatably 9th place, it's hard to keep track of, who has a better opportunity here. They could all end up on the podium in these next 13 minutes. We'll just have to wait and see. But Baisati in front is absolutely romping away. He's 5.5 seconds ahead of his teammate right now, who is desperately trying to hold on to 2nd place as well. He's got an army of GT3 cars all up his chuff right now. And yeah, who is going to finish 2nd? Who's going to finish 3rd in this race? Be sure to let us know what you guys think in the live chat, and we will hopefully see what you put, and we'll give our thoughts and opinions where we can. But my predictions, honestly, I think Castellozzi, he's done an amazing job of defending so far. I think he'll at least get a podium. Don't know if it will be 2nd place and someone will be able to sneak past, but he'll definitely end up on the podium, I believe. And then we'll have 2 pro-ams getting podiums today, hopefully. I hope I haven't just jinxed him. I really do hope I haven't. But further down the order, this is going on for 12th place, as you see 11th place there. Ooh, round the outside, Gunzelman. What a move that was. It's not over yet, though. David is going to try go around the outside of turn 10. He's going to have the inside line for the penultimate corner. And can he hold on to 12th place? And he just about can. And Wagnon's made a mistake. He's off the track. Oh, that's on the main straight. Oh, who was that? Just avoided him.
I believe that was Ethan Batts there. That was just barely avoiding him on the inside. So good for him to get out of that incident. But unfortunately for Thomas Wangen, he is going to drop through the field quite badly. He was trying to find any way he can to get back into the field. He's going to not do a terribly good job spinning it around. He goes for a excursion into the gravel. I believe. Ooh, he was I think he hit the curb a bit too hard there. That or just had a big spike of understeer, and that was Anders Meyer, I believe, that went through the gravel and was so close to getting caught up in that accident. He was going through the gravel. I'm sure his suspension is not very happy with that maneuver that Anders Meyer just pulled off, but he is still on track right now, and he's currently in P5. That's a fantastic run. And right now, the pack that was pretty insane. It was between like P2 and P9. It was only about, God, I think it had to have been like down to about 2 seconds separating that pack at some point. But unfortunately for that mistake, that Wangen, it has split that field a little bit now. So we have right now Castellozzi a little bit, I believe about a half a second ahead of Colnaghi. And then after that, we have another half-second-ish gap to Winkler in P4. And then we have Meyer quite a long ways behind right now, about a second and a half between Winkler and Meyer. So Meyer, P5 right now, still a pretty good drive from him. Started the race in P10, grabbed that Heat 1 win earlier tonight, but Meyer that could have been so much worse if that little off-track excursion he had went a little bit farther south. That could have been disastrous there for Anders Meyer.
I'm genuinely still in shock at the fact he managed to keep that one clean. I honestly am. He did a fantastic job there. He really did. And also, everyone else, kudos, they all managed to avoid him. And Bass as well, the fact he was inches away. And you see in the background there, Rousseff just defending from the two people behind him. He's going to have a tough job to do, as he will also be playing the team game for his teammate Meyer, who I'm not sure he would have picked up any damage from that. Maybe a bit of floor damage from going off the track, but who knows. He does seem to be a little bit off the pace than he was a couple laps ago. But hopefully he'll be able to hold on for these next 8.5 minutes that we have left in this race. And like I said before, Baisati has just had an absolute dream race. He's gotten into the lead on the opening lap and, well, just absolutely ran away with it. He's done an amazing job. And like I really hope I'm not cursing him. I really do, because he's done an amazing job. And at the moment, he fully deserves to win. And just realised, at the moment, we have an all-Italian podium. Like we had nearly an all-Scandinavian podium. We've got is this the race of the nations or something? Is this the World Cup for GT3 cars? Just all the nations in each race have just been gathering up together, and had a good race. A little bit interesting there, but it's fun to see anyway. As all there, Castellozzi, he's off the track.
Yeah, that's a simple mistake there. I believe that's coming out of turn 2, the very long sweeper there. And unfortunately for Castellozzi, that's going to take him out of that podium spot. So, or as we mentioned, it was an all-Italian podium. One of those Italian drivers is now dropped from P2 down to P8. So unfortunately for him, that'll take him pretty much out of contention, as he's now about 5 seconds back of the other position he once was. It's a very easy mistake to make, as we've seen a lot of drivers make that mistake. But getting back to the point you mentioned of the Italians grouping together and the other drivers of different nations staying in one neat little pack, there's been a lot of discussion about the possibility of motorsports being involved in the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, California. And I think it's maybe we're trialing that here on the GT3 trophies. Oh boy, that's Marcus Gunzelman there making another mistake there. I believe that's going through turn 9 there. That's the downhill braking zone, turn 10. So yes, that was turn 9 where he made that simple little mistake. Unfortunately, the laptop I have to look at the track map has unfortunately died about 15 minutes ago. I should call up the people I bought that from to ask them for a new battery, because the battery life on that thing is about as long as an old electric car. So right now we're seeing a lot of mistakes all throughout this field, and this man Antonio Samarco, who although he's hasn't shown the best pace in the world, I mentioned earlier on the broadcast how if he can just keep it clean and keep it on the road and let all the other drivers around him make a mistake, he can move up into the top 15. And look what just happened. He is now P15 overall. Certainly still probably a bit of disappointment as he sees his main championship rival of Winkler in P3, and that's a car going off as well. That's Gunzelman going off as well. God, it's terrible series of events for Gunzelman. He makes the same mistake in not the same mistake in the same corner. It's two different corners that are kind of similar, but unfortunately for him, he makes two mistakes that cost him dearly at this stage of the race when we only have about 5.5 minutes left to go in Heat 2 tonight.
Yeah, I just think he was rather frustrated with himself that he made a mistake and just lost his cool and made another mistake. And that's the worst thing as a driver you can do. Just lose all composure and start making mistake after mistake. And Guzman just needs to get his head down for these next 5 minutes and just bring the car home. There's a Scarrett there making his way up into 17th place after his earlier excursion, which unfortunately left him all the way down in, I believe it was 19th place. So he's making steady progress in this race. And Willems, I think he's going to be rather defenseless against Simarco, to be honest. I don't think there's anything he can do on this main straight. He is flashing to get ahead. What is Willems going to do? He's just going to pull over and let Simarco through. Maybe a little bit aggressive there from Simarco to do the flashing. Excuse me again. Don't know what's going on with my throat today, bloody hell. But Simarco there getting rather frustrated being behind slower cars. But yeah, has not had the best day as the German driver.
I think the action that we've seen tonight has blown out both of our voices. And another incident there, that's Kim André Bjorklund in the Sim Racing Norway Porsche. He makes a mistake. I believe that's going through turn 2 as well. So yet another mistake that we see going through the very long sweepers. I got to wonder. You mentioned earlier on in this broadcast, I believe during Heat 1, there's another car going off. That's Livingston going off. I believe that's in the same corner as well. That's coming through turn 2. So it's got to have been about 10 drivers that have gone off through turn 2 at this stage of the race. If you're playing the ARL GT3 trophy drinking game and you're taking a shot every time a driver goes off at turn 2, I believe you might have to visit the hospital after we're done with this broadcast. So a lot of drivers making a mistake in turn 2. That's a very trouble spot for these drivers. We were thinking going into this race that this track and car combination was going to be very challenging, but we weren't expecting it to be this challenging. We've blown out both of our voices. Thankfully, I don't believe either of us have another broadcast to do here on Apex Racing TV until Friday, so we'll have enough time to recover. But it's just been carnage, absolute chaos all throughout the field. We've seen front runners make mistakes, rear gunners make mistakes, we've seen mid-pack runners make mistakes as well. It's just been total carnage. The landscaping crew at this virtual version of Phillip Island is not going to be too happy with these drivers, and I can't really blame them.
No, the grass is going to be ruined. Will these drivers not think about the landowners of this track? They've got so much work to do after this race. But, oh, that's an aggressive move there from Meyer to overtake Winkler. I don't think Winkler's going to be having any of that. That was super aggressive from the Norwegian. But is he going to be able to make it stick? They just about avoided spinning each other out. There was a tiny bit of contact, but Winkler has managed to stay ahead just about for now. He's gone very wide, though, through turn 9. We're going to go downhill now into turn 10. Very tricky braking zone, as we've mentioned before. And it looks like Mai's going to have the inside line for the penultimate corner, and he's going to get ahead of Winkler. But now he's going to be a little bit vulnerable on this straight with Winkler getting into the slipstream. And who's going to end up in front into turn 1? And remember, Eric Rousseff is also getting a good eye view on this battle. Who's going to get the slipstream the most? It's going to be Winkler. He's going to try going on the outside of... Oh, Maya, they are so close. And Winkler just has to back out of it. As, yeah, the outside line through turn 1 is scary, to say the least. I think that's the best way I can put it. But, wow, what a dive bomb that was from Maya. I was not expecting that. As Bass, I believe, has made a mistake. Is it going to be turn 2? Let's wait and find out. And it is another victim of turn 2 in today's race.
And it's, I believe there's another victim there. I believe that's Christopher Crook, who made multiple mistakes going through turn 2 in Heat 1. He was going very slowly through there, so I'm not sure what happened. It looks like he has some kind of damage. He's going very slowly. Watch out for the driver behind of Merle coming up on this pack. We'll have to see what happens there. And Christopher Crook, that's bizarre there. It looked like he just gunned it straight into the barrier. Unfortunately for him, he is going to be out of this race with quite significant damage there. We'll see what happens. Maybe it'll some kind of technical issue. No, that car is crabbing as is. Crabbing already and just into the grass and bang into the tires and I believe that was Merle there in the Ferrari that is probably going to need a change of pants after this race. That was extremely close. I believe I just crapped myself watching that.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to have to agree with you. And it's white flag in the air for this final lap. And Winkler has just suffered and suffered. over and over again. He's losing pace, and there's Isaacson, who's not had a good race either, who's going into the pit lane. Winkler is defending for his life out there. He's got Rousset and Byfeld all over his rear view mirror, and he is going to have a tough job to do on this final lap if he wants to keep 4th place. Winkler just hasn't really had the pace in this second half of the race, to be honest. But now Byfeld's going to try and get past Rousset. He's going to dive down the outside, but if he can keep it round there, he'll have the inside line for turn 6, but just can't keep it there. Would have been a very tough challenge for him if he could, but I think Winkler might have just done enough, and I do think might have, because anything can happen with these few corners to go. But as we just settle down for this last minute of racing, Christian Baisati has done an amazing job. Gonzelman there making another last-ditch mistake, and that's Yannick Willems as well, who's made a mistake as well. A lot of mistakes coming out on this final lap, but this man has not made a mistake at all this race. It's an amazing job from him. He's led pretty much every lap as he crosses the line to win race 2 here at Phillip Island in the GT Trophy Championship. He'll be super happy with himself. And Cole Winkler is just going to about hold it off, and Rousset is going to hold off Byfeld for 5th place as they went side by side across the line, separated by half a tenth. That was some great racing between those two. And Gordon Haug as well wins the AM series in today's race. He went rather under the radar today, to be honest, as we were focusing on a lot of other battles. That's Paul Joseph Klist and Bjorklund also making contact. Is that around the final corner? I believe it is. And, well, that's just going to lose them more points, as they might lose places to Gunzelman and Livingston as well as they come back onto the track. And Bjorklund just about nudges ahead. I don't think Klist is very happy with that, as he's flashing his lights all over the place. But a lot of action in this race and a lot of action on that final lap. And my voice is about 5 minutes away from completely breaking. So, yeah, wow, that was, wow. What a race. What a race we just witnessed.
Yeah, Paul Joseph Klist is not very happy with his fellow Porsche there. That is, well, it's a good thing he's doing this after the checkered flag, but that's still, he'd probably get the hammer dropped on him if this was real life. But thankfully for him, we're just doing this in sim, but he's still very frustrated after that mistake there that cost both of those drivers dearly. It was an incident between those two drivers coming through turn 11, the penultimate corner on the final lap, and it's going to cost both of them badly. But this man, Christian Biasati, he put together a quiet drive there, took the lead very early on, started the race in 3rd, made it up to 2nd pretty much immediately, and now he's going to lead a formation of GE Sports Team Racing White Porsches around the circuit. Hopefully there's no one else coming up behind and just pile drives into them like we saw with some Marco earlier on during the qualifying session early on this broadcast. So nice little 3-wide formation there. There's nearly contact between those two drivers. Certainly, oh, there's a car spinning off there. So unfortunately they weren't able to hold on to that formation for a while, but it was Biasati holding on to the lead for a majority of this race to take a pretty dominant win over Mattia Kolnagi, his teammate. 4.8 seconds separating those drivers by the time the checkered flag came out. That's Anders Meyer in P3. After starting P10 in heat number 2, he took the win in heat 1, so it's a very good night there from Anders Meyer, who comes home P3 in heat number 2. And that's Carl Winkler in P4. Eric Rousset in a very good P5. He wins in Pro-Am. Then we have Marcus Byfeld in P6, Roberto Castellozzi in P7. Then we have Gordon Haug taking the win in the AM category in P8 overall. Then we have Stephen David in the Lamborghini, he's in P9. Kieran Smart in the BMW Track Scotland BMW in P10. Now it's Antonio Samarco finishing P11. Well, I don't even think we saw a lot of Antonio Samarco on that last lap. I'm sure the chaos that ensued all throughout this field helped him cut through the field like a hot knife through butter. He ends up in P10. Damage limitation from him. Then we have David Vey in P12, Alexander Scarrett in P13, Thomas Worm in P14. Then it's Christopher Otterholt in P15, Ethan Bass in P16. That's Merle with that very close call there with Christopher Crook's car. That was very close with him. He ends up in 17th. That's Isaacson in 18th. Yannick Willems in 19th. That's Gunzelman in 20th with a very dramatic night. That's Simon Andre and Livingston in P21. Kim Andre and Bjorklund in 22nd, my apologies. And that's Paul Joseph Clist in 23rd. Liang Lau in the 24th position. That's Thomas Wangan with a unfortunate mistake there that cost him dearly. He ends up in 25th. Stuart Wyness, a Track Scotland BMW in 26th. That's Kazuki Fujita, who had an incident in this race as well as in Heat 1. He ends up in P27. That's Christopher Crook, who finished this race with a very crooked car, sending him straight to a barrier that took him out of tonight's race. He ends up in the 28th position. That's Tom Weston in P29, the last of the finishers. He was involved in a very early incident, 20 laps down. So he had a lap 1 incident that took him out of the race, and he decided not to return. So that's your finishing order from tonight's Heat 2. That was just total carnage throughout tonight's race. It was very exciting, but man, I'm out of breath after that.
Same. I'm out of breath, mentally ill, happy, sad, confused. My voice hurts. Yeah, just pretty much everything. But overall, was a really, really entertaining race. And I'm thrilled I was here. It was absolutely amazing from start to finish. But we're not quite finished, are we, Ron? We've got a few people who would like to have a chat.
Yes, I believe we do, and I believe the first man that I'll bring up here in the commentary booth to have a few words with us before we end tonight's broadcast is Anders Meyer, who had a very good night, all things considered. Finished Heat 1 in P1, then finishes Heat 2 in P3. Anders Meyer, thank you very much for joining us, my friend. How's the race?
Stressful. That was some moments. I had to go to the grass to avoid Thomas in the race too. My tires was a bit difficult a couple of laps after, but I managed to get it together. If the race had been a little bit longer, maybe it could have been P2, but yeah, compared to the preparations I had before this race, I'm really happy about the evening.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that incident because, man, that was just extremely close. I saw a little bit of air there when you went to the grass, so I gotta imagine you need a clean change of pants after that. That was a very close call, but we saw a lot of carnage throughout tonight's race. Certainly the position that you were in Heat 2, you saw that. Do you think the other reason for that is down to the track design, or do you think the reason why we saw a lot of chaos tonight is just because of the how late we are into the season?
I think it might be track design, because it was pretty clear that the fastest set of Zero had to be aggressive in terms of downforce, and you have parts of the track where you really need the downforce, like turn 1 and the final corner. They're really fast. So in that moment that Thomas spun, I was almost spinning myself before, so I was a bit sideways, and then I saw Thomas, and I had to right when I had straightened up the car, I had to go outside, and I saw some Marco in race 1 as well. I suspected that McLaren would be difficult on the race fuel here. So yeah, I think it's the track design and how the GT3 cars, and that you need, especially in these reverse grid races, you need to have a bit lower wing to be able to pass. So it's a bit of setup and track design, I think.
Now, after tonight's race, we have a short little 1-week break, and then we return in 2 weeks' time to Hockenheim. How do you fancy your chances in 2 weeks' time?
Hockenheim, I have driven a lot more than this track, but that goes for everyone, I think, so that won't play too much of a difference. I still, every second Sunday, I have the National Norwegian League, which takes, sadly, some of my time from this series. So I don't know. It's hard to say. Hockenheim will be easier to get into, but yeah, we'll see. We'll take it as it comes. I think we have shown that maybe the quali pace is lacking a little bit, but in the race we usually seem pretty strong, so it will be fun to drive at Hockenheim.
Anders Meyer, thank you very much for joining us, my friend. You put together a pretty good evening of 2 races. Would you like to give anyone thanks or shout out?
Yeah, I had to give the usual shout out to the Racing Lab Esports, Mosa Racing, KTM, CarX.no, and Winström Motorsports Arena. And a special shout out this time to Eric, my teammate. He did a really good race in the Pro-Am, and thanks to you guys as always.
Thank you very much there, Anders Meyer. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks' time, hopefully for your sake, up at the front of the field. Thank you very much, Anders.
Thank you.
That was Anders Meyer, your kind of the lead star tonight, won in Heat 1 and then finished P3 in Heat 2. And for our second and maybe final interview tonight, I'll pass it off to you, Aaron.
Who else is it going to be other than Mattia Kolnagi? Well, Mattia, you had a pretty decent day, to be honest. 5th in Heat 1 and 2nd in Race 2. Would you agree with me that was a pretty good day all round?
Yeah, to be fair, I was not expecting to be this quick, as this week I had some lack of time, so I was not able to practice as much on this track, but I mean, the results were good, so can't complain.
Yeah, can't complain at all. And well, just talk us through how tough it was to drive around this track and car combination. We saw a lot of drivers making plenty of mistakes today. And just how difficult was it, in your opinion, to keep the car focused and on the track?
I think on terms of raw lap pace, it was quite, well, not easy, but it wasn't so hard to keep the lap times good. But during the race, as the tire wear endured, it was definitely harder to keep the car straight in the corners.
It definitely looked like an absolute beast to keep on the track. We saw so many mistakes in Race 1 and in Race 2, but you managed to keep it on the road and got some good results today. But going into Hockenheim in 2 weeks' time, is that a track that you think you can replicate results like this, or do you think maybe it's a track you might struggle at?
To be honest, I haven't started driving on the track. I haven't driven on it yet, but I mean, it looks good. I've seen F1 race there, so I'll see how quick I am around there.
Well, the last time F1 went there, it was absolutely chaotic, as I'm sure many people are aware of. But before we let you go, Kalnagi, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, big thanks to the whole team for the work during the whole season, and to Samuele Spalletta.
Well, thank you for talking to us, Mattia, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time for Hockenheim.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too, mate.
That was Mattia Kolnagi, I just completely moved myself out of this channel, so getting back to the point I was going to make, you can tell I'm a great technical wizard there, as I completely screwed that up. So Mattia Kolnagi put together a good race, put together a fairly quiet race, but brought it home in a pretty decent finish. So in a chaotic race that we had tonight, what do you take away from tonight's racing action, Aaron?
Well, one thing I won't be taking away is my voice. It's going to be left at Phillip Island for the foreseeable future. But yeah, I mean, it was fantastic racing, but just from start to finish in both races, it was amazing to watch for us, and I'm sure everybody at home. And well, if it's like that every week, then like I said before, I might just have to come back again. I might sabotage Sam on purpose just so I can come back.
I'm not sure what kind of sabotage you'd want to do. I can't really condone any criminal activity that you may or may not take place in to do that, but we'll leave it at that for tonight's broadcast. We've had some fantastic racing all through tonight. We've had a lot of action-packed racing, and we hope you can join us throughout the rest of the season. We only have 3 races to go for the ARL GT3 trophy. We have, as I said, 2 weeks' time at Hockenheim, then we have Donington, and the final round of the season in Imola in a few weeks. That'll be a very intriguing race in about a month's time. So thank you all, regardless of where you're watching from, for joining us. It was a very dramatic race. So that'll do it here on Apex Racing TV for round 7 of the ARL GT3 trophy. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Aaron Smith joining me in the commentary booth, and Samuli Kumo doing an amazing job with the cameras and turning all the knobs in the production hauler, I say thank you all very much for watching, and we hope to see you wherever it is in the near future. Have a great rest of your day.